Friday, time for a history briefing. So I'm intentionally holding the phone at a little bit of an angle so you can't see where I'm at, because I want you to try and guess. I'm at one of the places on campus that has the most historic military connections of any place on campus. So if you go look in IU history for the place with some of the strongest military connections, what structure would you think that I am standing outside of? Any guesses? No, you're wrong. Nope, still wrong. Nope, not that one either. I am actually standing outside of Collins Living Learning Center. What we know today as Collins Living Learning Center. Back then it was known as the Men's Residence Center prior to World War II. But during World War II, it was known as the Ship. And the U.S. Navy had a training facility here. They actually had a security checkpoint up here at the front entrance where shore patrol stood guard duty, and they had 1,200 naval personnel, including Marines and Coast Guard, that trained here during the war, and a huge portion of that was actually women. We were one of the first training sites for WWIIs and Women Marines and SPARs, which were all the women's auxiliary groups that were formed during World War II for women to take on various roles. And so the Navy initially used this as a training facility for men and then rotated into being a training facility for women. And there were 1,200 of them, as I said before, that trained here. And actually there used to be a giant yard arm, a flagpole, that went up off the front of the balcony there. And all the way up until a few years ago when they did the renovation, you could still see the mounting marks on the front patio back there where the yard arm used to be. And I'll include a link to some pictures in the archives of this courtyard filled with military personnel that were here during the war. And one of the coolest things that happened during that time was that when the Navy was here, they used to have their own baseball team, and they used to play against the fraternities, and they'd play against local teams and some of that sort of stuff. And they were one of the few white teams that would play against the African-American fraternities that were here during the time. And so they would play against them in an annual game for several years during the war that took place, of course, right across the street in what we know today as the intramural fields. But yeah, so Collins has one of the strongest military histories of any place here on campus. Also, for a while, where Luddy Hall is today, there were 4 buildings that were part of a military language training program. And after the military left campus, those buildings became part of IU and then eventually part of Collins. And so Brown, Green, Morgan and Monroe, Brown and Green were part of Collins, were part of that language training program and barracks that were built by the military. And then they've since been torn down, and Luddy Hall is now in that location. But hence why Collins has some of the strongest military history of any place here on campus. So there's your briefing for today, and we'll see you again next week.